Welcome to Engaged by Design, where we help you engage more learners more effectively, whether internally or externally in your organization. I'm Dr. Vernon Smith, your elven cleric and host, and I'm joined by my halfling rogue and co-host, Dr. Michael Cottom. That is you.
That must be me.
That's your character, right? So in this second part of our conversation with Bridget Davis, we move beyond higher education and explore how project management shows up in everyday life.
One of the things I loved about working with Bridget is she brings her whole self to the work. She's not just a project manager. She's also an entrepreneur. She's an artist. She runs a company called Heathen Works. It's a woodburning art business. And she's an avid Dungeons and Dragons player. There is never a dull moment with Bridget.
We're not even talking about the metal stuff, right? So I think you'll be surprised at how much Agile, Scrum, and trust building connect to real or gamified life and personal passions. So let's get back to our conversation with Bridget Davis.
Hey, Bridget.
So this is awesome. Thank you for sharing your experiences here, Bridget. I mean, this is obviously a strength and a talent set that you've developed. And, I've seen it develop over time, and it's just like you've bloomed and you've flourished in doing this. And I'm sure that, whether it's education or other areas, you are going to be very adept at that. What about project management outside of a formal work setting? How can those skill sets do things? I know you're an entrepreneur. And you might want to talk about that a little bit.
Entrepreneur.
Yes, artist entrepreneur. But are there other areas that you find these principles and skills useful?
Yes, absolutely. So it's funny that you mentioned that, because once I got into project management, I realized that I've been doing it this whole time. And I didn't even realize it. And it kind of just flows with my brain of this insistence to have a plan in place. And it could change, but at least if you know what to expect, and that there will be things you don't expect, it's a lot easier. But yes, I am an entrepreneur. That's one of the ways that I was able to use my project management skills. I tend to really focus on creating the art, and I end up having all of these ideas, and I need to be able to structure the projects that I want to do in a way that makes sense, in a timeline that makes sense. So I do wood burning. I create wood burned art and gadgets and house goods. I burn by hand. I don't use any laser machines or burn machines, and I go from point A to point B. I get a piece of wood, I make sure it's good, I put the design on, I burn the design, and then I lacquer and finish it and get it prepared for sales. So it's a lengthy process with a lot of steps. So project management has really helped me focus on building, I guess, production process, if you want to call it that, in a low fidelity setting, but also all the business side of the things that you do as a small business owner, like managing budget, managing expenses and sales, and for taxes and things that you do. So yeah, that's been incredibly helpful.
Okay, before you go further, Bridget, what is the name that you have for your company and your artwork? You've done a couple things for me. I've bought some things. I love it. What is the name of it? Because we're going to promote this. We're going to put it up there. And, we want people to hit your website too.
Yes, of course. So my business is Heathen Works. It is an LLC, and it is online. Check us out on Instagram. We're there, and we're getting a website set up, its own standalone website. So check it out.
Okay, Heathen Works.
Heathen
It's
Works.
really good.
And we can catch you at some Renaissance fairs occasionally.
Yep, that's my timeline. I have in the fall, that's my busiest time. I do Ren fairs. So I'm based out of Winchester, Virginia, and we have a tiny little Ren fair called Ravenwood Fest, and every year I have been a vendor. It goes over 2 weeks, and that's like my biggest event. I consider myself a micro business because I just kind of sell stuff online, but these these rent fairs and events are really what drives my timeline each year, and it's the guidepost for me. So
You made me a beautiful, I wanna say it was like, the circle trunk cut of wood, right? If I remember right. I'm not sure what you call that.
I think they're called cookies,
But you burned
like a
in
big cookie.
cookies? Yeah. Yeah. But you burned it with, the West Virginia thing and Almost Heaven and then a flower. It was, with the blues in there and everything. It was just beautiful. It was something that I hung at the front of the house there in West Virginia when we lived there. But that was much appreciated and beautiful piece of art. And so, listeners, you need to talk to Bridget. She can make some really cool stuff for you.
Yeah, thanks. I'll have stuff up online, so it's been a minute, but yes.
Your biggest piece that was most impressive to me, I think maybe you sold it already, but it was one that was a spine, if I remember right. And I just kept thinking of my chiropractor brother and thinking, "Oh, we should get this in his office." It was just really cool and very metal,
Oh, yeah.
you know.
Yeah, yeah, all the pieces are gonna be a little bit, like, dark and metal, so it's gonna be awesome, but, yeah, that was an anatomical spine with wildflowers of the Shenandoah Valley around it, so
I
Beautiful
love
piece.
that.
That sold, right?
it finally sold. It took a couple years, but, yeah, people
Oh, it's
kept liking
beautiful.
it, but yeah.
Yeah. Love the local
That was
connection too.
great.
That's cool. So we talked a little bit about, the artistry, but are there other avocations or hobbies that project management and your skill set also helps you with?
Well, Michael mentioned it. I do Dungeons& and
Yes, I
Dragons.
did.
Dungeons& and Dragons, so
So
that has
D&D,
become
D&D. So this is not deans and directors meeting, which by the way is a huge event and very difficult to do. And we're not talking about deans and directors. We're talking about Dungeons and Dragons.
yes, and honestly, when we did have D&D meetings, it took all the energy that I had to not just say, like, "Roll initiative" in the middle of a meeting or nerd out and
Nice.
format it as a campaign or a one shot. But yes, I do Dungeons& and Dragons. It's, a role-playing game. It's so much fun. You roll a bunch of dice and hang out with your friends and pretend that you're going on a quest. And immediately, I have been doing this for a couple years, maybe 3 years now. Immediately, I saw the connection between project management and specifically Scrum project management with Dungeons& and Dragons. It was just uncanny how they line up so much with having to be agile, having to be quick-footed, quick thinking, um, and learning as you go. So that has been so helpful for me to understand the mechanics of the game.
In what ways does or what roles let's go to roles, role playing. Who plays what role in a Dungeons& and Dragons campaign compared to a project you might be,
Oh yeah,
managing?
so I thought it was just so funny that you have this role called the Dungeon Master. You also have a role called the Scrum Master, and
Mhm.
both of them, their role is specifically to make sure you go on your quest. That's their goal. That's their role. If something has to change or if characters make a decision that doesn't quite align with the quest ahead, you have to pivot and you have to be agile to either get them on the right track again or to go on a side quest. It's a running joke that, especially in our group, that our dungeon master, he's amazing, he's wonderful. He spent all this time creating a session with the scenery and the plot and like the characters and things and what you're going to encounter. And our team is just, it just goes way over our head, and we're just going to be like, nope, we're going to go left instead. And he has to, on the fly,
That n
create something entirely new and be totally new people.
that never happens in an academic
Right?
project, right? We always just follow the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the dungeon master has to be agile, the team has to be agile. You don't know what you're going to do on your quest. You have to learn things either from characters in the village, NPC, non-playing characters, or as, you learn the ancient artifacts of some prophecy or something that'll help guide you. So it's the campaign, the party, we call it. They are the team members, the scrum team. They do the work. They do the stuff with the guidance and facilitation of the dungeon master. So I found so much delight in that connection. So,
So, Bridget, this sounds like for parents that might be concerned that their kids are, or the parents themselves are spending a lot of time actually in this. This could be preparation for really a career in project management, right? In agile project management.
yeah, yeah, it can.
Indeed.
It can be a preparation for a lot of things. It can teach confidence. It can teach critical thinking skills. It teaches consequences and taking risks and discovering opportunities and working with other people, team building, team coordination, and collaboration. Um, and, even on a fundamental sense, learning how to lose and learning how to win, depending on how the dice roll. So,
Yeah. There's some chance involved along with the strategy,
Yeah,
right? Which is pretty much
I
yeah.
think
reality for
I
most
think
of
I have an
us.
idea here, Michael. We need to talk about doing executive training by playing D&D. Uh, maybe some executive development and leadership development doing that. I mean, this could be how PMP or CSM or DASM, say, hey, kids, you know, be your dungeon master, be your scrum master. It's like being a dungeon master. And I
Yeah.
could just see a campaign right there.
Love to transform a
So I have
leadership program, a 3-day program, into a 3-day campaign. That would awesome.
that'd be that'd be pretty fun. So I have a book here that I actually gave to Bridget at one point a couple years ago. A book that I found that I found it on a bookshelf, I think in Provo, Utah. If I found it was in a Barnes and Noble or whatever. I bought 2 copies. I gave one to Bridget. It's called How to Be More D&D. Face your dragons, be more adventurous, and live your best geeky life. It might go in the show notes, just as something to inspire you to take the fun of games, take the fun of role playing and things like that, and turn it into lessons for life, which is kind of what Bridget has done with project management, having those certifications, having that background, having Viking studies back and other backgrounds, and turned it into something that can help you to, to lead more effectively. I love that idea of an executive team being in a D&D campaign and see who becomes the most ruthless, who sabotages
And how they
things.
act when
I could just see it getting a little bit
and when they
nasty.
lose, right? And I mean, when Bridget said how to
Yeah.
win and how to lose, that's really critical in leadership abilities.
Interested to see what teaching, spending that first half of the day teaching people about how the next 3 days are gonna go and teaching them the game. I wonder how that would go. I'm interested in that. I think that would be super fun.
We'll continue with Bridget in just a moment. Now, we want to share that if you're ready to take your leadership to the next level, or maybe you just don't feel ready yet, check out the Macro Leadership book and our free 10-lesson email course. Sign up and we'll send you new insights in an email every 3 days or so, right to your inbox.
Yeah, it's a good little way to remind yourself of how you can get better. You'll learn to move from frustration and stagnation, or even some of those damaging micromanagement habits we get into. You'll move to leading with purpose. You'll learn strategies that work in higher education, in business, and frankly, in your personal life beyond that.
Yes, visit us at engagedbydesign.com to sign up and get started today. Now, back to Bridget.
It reminds me, Vernon, I want you to talk about this for a second. Of course, we're going on a tangent because we do. Way back in the day, we had the Rio Way training. which included a bunch of games. There was the boat game. That's the one that I remember the most because it got us all mad. But there were various games. And I know I led some of those later, but I know that you were there for some of the beginning of it. What kind of games came into training and building your team?
So, Mike, I'll just talk a little bit about the boat. So, it was total quality management training that was a baseline for continuous quality improvement there. But a game, people, especially adults, games are important because they are simulations, but they have lower consequences, right? So no one's going to die, right? It's like the Oregon Trail. No one's going to get dysentery and die, but you can play along the way to have that happen. With those boats were actually a understanding of how to improve process. So they'd actually construct tiny little sailboats, that you fold out of paper and make a little sailboat. And then it went through a quality review of reflecting what that was and then seeing who could do this the best in the shortest amount of time. Well, that physical, it's involving all the intelligences, right? It's involving the left and right hemispheres. It's involving kinesthetic sense and interpersonal sense and the logical, and different people's strengths will arise out of that, tiny little thing. In business management classes, I used to do tower building out of straws, and who could build the fastest tower in the shortest amount of time. And you do a couple of iterations of that, and then people get it and they can do it. So going back to that, games are awesome opportunities to really do something in a shorter amount of time with not the huge, deadly consequences, but also to understand how to move forward together.
Michael, didn't we build a tower out of candy during
We
a team
did.
building exercise? I
We
blocked that
did.
out of my memory, and I just remembered it, Vernon, when you said tower.
Oh, you can do it out of
Yeah, I
spaghetti. I mean, there's different ways that you have
yeah,
different approaches. I usually use straws, but spaghetti works really well. You can do it out of a lot of materials, but the point is not the material; it's the exercise and seeing the frustration of the person that's like the dominant person that wants to get it done and knows everything versus the other members of the team that actually have the better ideas.
I think what we did for the session you're thinking of, Bridget, I think we used spaghetti and, mini marshmallows, I think, was one of the things that we did. I've done this a few different times with younger audiences and with adults, but part of what you learn in those games is to deal with that frustration, things that seem unfair. I just remember running the sailboat exercise, at Rio Salado, and part of the game is you had 3 rounds. You had a team of people at your table, and you were supposed to fold the paper into a specific way, and you were judged on how pointy the points were, how high the sail went. You were judged by all these things. But there were different judges who were walking around and counting your points. It got so frustrating when the judges judged things differently. And you thought, but ours was better and they got more points. Or you've changed your process from one round to the next, from each person doing a step like assembly line to people specializing to people just saying, oh, we'll each build a boat. All of those changes, it wasn't about the boat. It was about you working with those people around the table with you, recognizing the constraints kept changing. The paper kept getting thicker, so it got harder for you to make the boats. The judges changed, so the standards of quality kept changing. And so how do people react when they're in those situations? That's a very structured game. It's not the same as a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, but you're getting people to play in roles for low stakes that sometimes feel really high, like really high stakes. It's a great way to
The
learn.
fact
The people at my table were the ones that became my best friends for the next
I
years.
mean, the fact
You
that you
know,
still remember that, Michael, I mean, I say
I do.
successful learning, experiential learning right there. It's stuck.
It, and that was like the third time I'd done that as a participant, you know, over the years. So I have stories about each one of them, but they're more memorable than any slideshow that anybody showed. I have no idea what the slideshows were about anymore. The PowerPoints? Seriously, I don't remember any of that. But what I remember is the way that we interacted as a team, in part because it was hard, it was frustrating, and there was a bit of victory to it. It was the emotions up and down. And we had some stories to tell as we crossed in the hallway later. It was just fun.
Bridget, as you go through campaigns, now my youngest is going through a campaign right now, and this thing, I don't know how long it's been going, at least 3 months. And I said, "So you're still working on this campaign?" And they responded to me like, "Papa, these campaigns can last years." So it's very interesting, and so that's a lot of work for the Scrum Master, or sorry, the Dungeon Master.
Yeah, we had a, campaign. The first one that I ever did was supposed to be 6 months. They were like, 6 months max." It ended up being 2.5 years because, speaking of project management, we did not manage our scope. It just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and different.
Side quest, side quest,
Yep.
side quest. Yeah.
It was one of the coolest experiences because when you're done, like, at the end of the campaign, like, we were all really sad. We spent 2.5 years, and we didn't know what to do with ourselves after that. So it was definitely rewarding and definitely so much fun to, like, get to know the thought processes of my friends that I would have never guessed that they would have done some of the things that they did, but here we are. And it was, yeah, super fun.
So in some of those things, you're taking a risk. I mean, tell a little story and kind of make a comparison between it. You're in this campaign, weird things happen because it is what it is. And you take something that's a challenge or a real downturn and you can turn it into an opportunity. How does that happen in a game? And then how does it happen when you're working in project
Yeah, that
management?
was something that that's a really good call out because especially Solana, like, this is a good lesson for anybody who's learning or it's new to Dungeons and Dragons, let alone project management. Risks are going to happen. They're going to have risks. And if, like, sometimes, especially with Dungeons and Dragons, I don't want to say this if it's like going to like hurt the organization in any way, but like, take the risk. It might be great. There is some risks turn out to be super opportunities and unravel or shed light on things that we would have not seen otherwise unless that risk was either noted or happened. So the risk that I'm thinking of is in Dungeons and Dragons, and it is through the first campaign that I did. So my party, we were in the campaign Descent into Avernus. For context, so our group, we were charged with, here's the whole premise is you go into hell and you have to save a city from the evil forces within. And you have to save all time, reality, and space in the process.
Just a little thing to
No
save,
pressure.
you know? Yeah, no pressure.
So, so our characters, we are in hell. Nothing good happens there. It's awful, and there's just a bad time all around. So we were just finishing up this big fight with some big baddies in this burning city, and we won. And we were came across these villagers who were kind of wrapped in rope and ichor and like demon goo all over them, I guess. And we wanted to help them, like, get them out of all this stuff, just to help them a little bit. But there was a risk there because when you touch demon ichor in this game, any number of things could happen. If it gets on you, you have to roll some dice, and that will determine what happens. It could be something great, like you get super strong, or I don't know, you die instantly. You can have any number of things happen to you based on how this 100-sided dice decides for you. So my character, I was very confident. I was a tabaxi rogue, so my abilities, I had a lot of dexterity. I could jump and weave and bob and nobody could get me. I could lurk in the darkness and in the shadows and nobody could see me. I was like a super hunter. Um,
It's like real
I
life,
know.
Bridget.
Yeah. Just lurking in the shadows all the time. And so I was very confident that I could just like get these people out of this little trap so easily because that's my forte. That's my specialty, right? I ended up rolling a 1, which in D&D terms, that's the worst thing you can do. That is the you're going to have a bad time. There's no way to get around it. It's going to be bad. And so you have a 20-sided dice. You can get either 1 through 20. 20 means the best possible outcome. 1 is the worst. So I rolled a 1, and I was devastated. I was like, how could this happen? I thought my rolling, I could get nothing less than an 8 easily. Like based on all my stats and my abilities. Nope, it didn't matter here because this was like a special one-off roll. So it counted as a critical fail. And I ended up growing tentacles on my arms. So a tabaxi is a cat person. So I was a cat person with tentacle arms and cat paws. What? 2 other people in my campaign, they ended up getting one leg 10 foot longer than the other. So they had to hobble around for a while.
I can just picture it. The special effects
It
are
was
real
great.
here.
So,
So that was a bad turn,
yeah,
right? Because you rolled a nat 1.
yes.
It's pretty big. I don't know how they didn't kick you off the party, but,
I know, as if it was my first nat 1.
So how do you turn that around?
So, all in all, our our DM was kind that day and built something in to where it's like, oh, somebody had like a cure and we all drank it and we all became fine after. But that night I started thinking like, wait a minute. I rolled a nat 1 and this happened and I got the like having tentacles is awesome because and I was like, yeah, I reached out to him and I was like, "Hey, can I please like at least keep one tentacle on my character, like maybe the left arm or something?" And he was like, "You have to explain it. Give me a rationale. What's your business case here?" And so I had to explain like all the reasons. I'm assuming that this is an octopus tentacle, which like, okay, I have a 10-foot span reach. I previously had 5, so I can like hit people and baddies at a further distance, which keeps me safer. I can climb up walls easier and like one-armed stay on a wall or a ceiling and still attack people or snatch like the artifact or goods and then like I don't know, tentacle like climb away. So that was great for my thieving and for my rogue nature. And then also think about like octopies. They they morph and camouflage in their environment. They can become any like I don't know, like bumpy sandpaper or super like flush with the ground. They can change their color. So I figured I could have my tentacle wrap up and it look like my normal arm so that nobody would be able to tell that I had this anomaly. So I figured I could conceal it enough.
This is a lot of
It's a
thought.
lot of
This is a
project
lot of
manager.
thought.
So I asked and he was like, "Oh my God, that's what he said. You thought a lot about this." I was like, "It's really just 15 minutes. If you just watch enough documentaries, it's a really easy fix." So he was like, "Yes.
So you
Tentacles grow back, right?
Yes. If somebody
And
were to
these
cut off my hand, I could grow it back."
oh, man.
Yeah.
That is a good string.
Could you
and if you can hide it from everybody else, you don't lose all of your
could you
well,
imagine?
what are some of the other things you could lose? Your charisma, your ability to I don't know, you could just be, you know, super thief.
Yeah, yeah, just think about how menacing it would be if you're in, like, a dark room and you just hear, like, those suction cups on, like, a wall, and it's, like, nothing else, it's so
Ew.
scary. Cool.
Okay, that just did it. I got the
Yeah.
heebie-jeebies.
So, my character ended up, being the only one to make it out of Avernus, and she kept her tentacle arm and aim, Everybody else ended up
So
being
you
staying in health, kind of forming a democracy.
you won because you took advantage of a mistake, of
A
a
risk taken,
misfortune.
an issue, a threat and an issue, and turned it into um, something that could be very useful and an opportunity. Yes. So do that in project management. Think
Wow.
about projects like that too.
Maybe that's a question for all three of us. How do we turn that into a lesson about project management? Hey, Vernon's got
No,
one.
I
Let's
don't
hear
have
it.
one. I'm just trying to think of, I love the notion to noodle on that a little bit.
I could see that. If we take it into one of the projects you've worked on or that we've worked on over time, some misfortune or something that goes wrong can turn into a strength. If I do have an example that I'm thinking of right now. Don't know how good it is, but I'm going to try. As we started having some enrollment issues at Webster when I was there, at our extended campuses, because the market kept changing. The market changed drastically from a peak in 2012 or so to really coming down, and the extended campus model was starting to not work so well. Uh, that was a misfortune. It was something that was bad for the institution, but then we could also turn it into something that was an opportunity to extend the ways that we delivered learning, our learning experiences, and we ended up putting together a thing we called WebNet or Webster Networked Classes. And that was where, before the pandemic, mind you, a few years before the pandemic, we started connecting our classrooms across the country, really, in live teaching sessions with one faculty in one place and students in multiple different locations where they could join into that class, right? And so we created this network of online classes that were live online classes across 50 campuses plus and then international as well. That seemed like a desperation move in some ways to try and help students to finish, but it wasn't exactly what we wanted. But what it ended up being when the pandemic hit was 36 hours to turn a campus network into a live video instruction network that they couldn't have done otherwise. So the misfortune and the workarounds that we had done before ended up in a crisis to be the saving grace of the enrollments of the students being able to complete their courses. So things have changed since then, even now. But that was one case where a downturn, something that didn't work in our favor, ended up becoming a strength when things all went to hell.
I like that.
Just have to tie it back into
I
that
like that.
campaign.
Yeah. And some folks might be, and by folks, I mean institutions, colleges, universities, nonprofits, other business might be feeling a little bit like they're trapped in hell right now. And, there's a lot of turbulence that's going on in the environment and other things like that. So I like the mindset, Bridget, that you've said and shared that taking the risk, but also taking advantage of the fail, which is really not a fail. It's an opportunity. It's a way of reimagining and reframing things for what's ahead of you.
Yeah, and I do want to say, like, taking the risk, it was a calculated risk. It was based on the data and stats that I had.
Right.
So it was not like I was just running into a fire all willy-nilly. So when I say take the risk, I guess recognize the risk and recognize that it might not actually be a risk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
No, that's awesome.
or like you said, Vernon, like taking advantage of the fact that it might not actually be a failure, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good.
Man, we have been on a massively cool journey during this podcast. And if you thought you were going to hear just about higher
Quest.
education alone, you were sorely mistaken. Here at Engaged by Design, we really like to give the guest a chance to reflect on a question. And that is for Bridget, this is for you. How do you engage more learners more effectively?
That's a great question. Uh, I would say that to engage more learners more effectively, I approach them with curiosity. I approach conversations and different teams with understanding that I might not know everything and that they probably have a lot more to add than what I think. So, curiosity, um, that's it.
That's nice. And I would attest, those are your final words on the podcast here, but I would attest that that's how you do approach it. That you approach as a learner, as someone who has a lot of intellection, just to name a few of your
Yeah.
strengths there. And that does get people more engaged and more involved because you are so curious and so giving and generous in the way that you interact with people that it builds trust. I love it.
Yeah, it's great. Well, Bridget, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule at the American College of Financial Services. We got a big shout out to them. We know many individuals there that are doing wonderful work, including George, your president,
Yay!
and Gwen.
Big cheers.
Special shout out to our folks. We really appreciate them. I'm so glad that Bridget shared her artistic side with us, her entrepreneurial work, and her love and I'd say mastery of Dungeons and Dragons. I loved hearing how project management skills make a difference, not just in the office, but in art studios and gaming scenarios too. It's great.
Yeah, like I said, never a dull moment. And the connection between being a scrum master and a dungeon master, it's just one I'm not going to forget. It's a great reminder that leadership is about guiding the process with your team, not doing all the work yourself. And there's some great lessons about turning a tragedy, even with tentacles, into some advantage
Yes,
to save your
or
party from
democracy in
disaster.
hell. Yes. So, as always, we want to leave you with a reflection question. How can you apply your professional skills to the most important passions in your life?
That's a good one. We are whole people when we go to work and when we're at home, both ways. And it helps to get us thinking outside of the office about what's really important and what matters to you. So, thank you, as always, for listening to Engaged by Design. I hope you loved this episode as much as we did. Be sure to rate it, share it, and subscribe so you don't miss any of our fun new episodes. And, don't just roll the D20 dice to take a chance on your leadership. Learn to engage by design. Bridget rolled a nat 20 on that one.
Nailed it.